these rules you just were talking about, 90 seconds, 30 seconds. How do you balance the world of digital and measurement as well as creativity? Because at the end of the day, consumers buy an idea. They don't buy data, they don't buy measurements, they buy a creative idea, they buy a brand. And so we've been on this journey ourselves of how do you balance this world of being effective, being able to measure, but at the same time having a creative idea that consumers resonate with. So that's what I'm going to share with you in the next 30 minutes. Before that, a quick preview into who I am. I've been doing marketing for 17 years, 12 of those in the digital space. My career has kind of grown across multiple countries, none of it planned, but I'm in the UK now. I moved here from Canada a couple of years ago. I've worked in Dubai, and I've also worked in Pakistan and Sri Lanka. And it's been across 2 different companies, so Unilever and Pizza Hut. My friends joke that I have pepperoni in my veins because I've worked for Pizza Hut for 12 years, but that's kind of my background. So that's a little bit about me. Let me tell you a little bit about Pizza Hut. It's the most loved, fastest growing brand in the world. We have 11,000 restaurants outside the United States. We are in 111 countries. We do about $7 billion. Yeah, I was about to say pounds. $7 billion in sales, and last year we hit about 1.5 billion in digital sales, so in terms of online sales. So that's the magnitude of the size of the brand. That's Pizza Hut. Really, if you think about our lives and you think about what has changed how we live today as compared to how we lived probably 20 years ago, I think of it as 3 Ds. The 3 Ds have happened to us. The first big one is really digital. Our life has been interlinked with devices. Like I can't go anywhere without my phone or my iPad. It won't be the same. I feel lost if I don't have my digital gadgets with me. The other one is really delivery. The whole world is at our fingertips now. Almost just about anything can get delivered. I remember when I lived in Dubai, if I didn't have one tomato, there was somebody that could deliver 1 tomato to you from the store downstairs. But just about anything can get delivered to you today. And the next one is really disruption. If you think about tech players, you think about the world of food, whether it's aggregators coming in, whether it's Uber, it's Airbnb, our world's getting disrupted with digital players. And so these 3 Ds are really defining and changing our lives as we move forward. But as leaders in this digital space, and as screens become smaller, as things get more automated, how do we get our message across? You know, you heard Lee talk about 60 seconds or 90 seconds for getting a message across. How do we get our message across as screens become smaller, attention spans become smaller? As marketeers, as digital leaders, how do you get your brand message out in a way that consumers are going to remember? And what's important? Having a creative idea is important. Having a big marketing budget is important. You know, I've run 3 times the marketing budget that I ran in Canada. It's 1/3 now. But does it really matter? Because at the end of the day, it's the creative idea that you're selling. It's the brand that you're selling. That's probably the most important in my mind. You know, I strongly believe that creativity drives performance. In the world of digital, everything's measured. You think about ROAS, you think about, you know, impressions. But if you don't have a strong creative idea, none of the rest is going to matter. And there's data to show that. This is a study done by IPA, and some of it is a bit hazy from where I'm standing. But the green circles are creative work that have been given awards. The white circles are creative work, but not award-worthy work. And you see that work that is more creative drives better business results. And if you look at these 2 graphs, this is when both pieces of work have the same media spend or the same amount of money being put behind it. And you see that work that is more creative tends to be twice as more effective in driving business results. So if there's anybody there focusing on data and measurements and not worrying about the creative idea, you're doing it all wrong. And you're going to have to start with what's that creative proposition you're selling, and then attach all the different rules you get hit with in the world of digital. This is kind of how I think about it today, and I run a team that does advertising and food and digital, but the creative idea can't be separate from your strategy, and that's kind of how it operates today. There's somebody here doing creative, and there's somebody here doing digital strategy, but really they both go together. You design your strategy based on the idea you're really trying to sell, and they have to be mutually exclusive to be a winning proposition, but in the world of you know, the fast tech world that we're moving in, they tend to separate. And that's doing it all wrong. And we've done some of this wrong, and now we're trying to fix it to make sure that a digital strategy is accompanied with a creative strategy as well. again, as a marketeer, I've done marketing for 17 years. I've done traditional marketing. I've done digital marketing. But today, when you start doing marketing, you get hit with all types of rules. Make your creative work in 6 seconds. Can it work with sound off? Can it work in a vertical format? Can it work in a square? Can it, is it mobile optimized? You get hit with all these rules, and very quickly, you can just completely forget the idea you're trying to sell. You suddenly start optimizing your work to all these different rules coming from Facebook, coming from Instagram, coming from YouTube, and that creative idea that you originally had just gets lost. And so it's important to kind of remember that creativity is probably the most important. And the way my team and I operate really is we just forget about the rules to start with. The rules will come later. What is that creative idea that you're trying to sell? What does your brand stand for? What is that business problem you are trying to solve for as a business, as a brand? That's probably central to the idea. And then you lay over all the different rules that come. And by the way, those rules change, right? As 5 years ago, it was 6 seconds is the only time you need to get your message around. I heard Lee talking about you need longer form now in the digital space. Those rules are constantly going to change. But if you have a strong creative idea, that's probably the most important, in my opinion. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of our journey at Pizza Hut and how we've navigated some of this. We think of it in 3 C's. It's clarity, it's continuity, and it's consistency. Lee could have written my deck. He was presenting a few things, and I'm like, that's just a perfect setup for me, where he was like, stay with the idea, don't try and change too often. It really is about, the first C is really clarity. Do you know what you stand for? Whether it's a person, whether it's a brand, whether it's a business, do you know who you are? Do you know what business problem you are trying to solve for? And a single-minded one. Don't try and do too many things. What's that single thing that you're trying to solve for as a brand? What do you stand for? You can have the biggest budgets in the world, but if you don't really have clarity, you're throwing good money at bad. So it's important to be clear of your mission. And that's kind of what we did at Pizza Hut. I'm going to walk you through. This is a little bit of an internal story, but I thought it'd be good to share about the journey and how we are finding our way as Pizza Hut in the UK. So I talked to you about, I've worked for Pizza Hut for 12 years. In many countries that Pizza Hut operates in, it's the market leader. But in the UK, we're not the market leader. We find ourselves as a challenger brand. We're number 2 with a challenger mindset. And so, what we wanted to do was establish who do we want to stand for. And we want to be the market, the market leader. We want to be dominant in this market, as we are in many other countries. I talked about 111 countries. We're probably market leaders in 80% of those countries we're in. But we're not in the UK. And when I talk about clarity, it's important to establish that. Who are we? What do we stand for? So Pizza Hut is a challenger brand in the UK. Are we clear about that as a team? So we are now. And so we started to say, OK, what are we going to do about that in the UK? So our mission is to be the market dominant player in a couple of years. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that by being the easiest, the fastest, and the tastiest brand in the UK. And so how do we go about that strategy? Obviously, you need to look at your competitor. You need to do the math. And so we did that. And if you look at this chart, it talks to you about the users that use the brand in blue and the users that use the brand in red, which is Pizza Hut. There are about 4 million users that use Domino's, who's our closest competitor. There are 2 million people that use Pizza Hut. And then there's about 1 million people that use both brands. And so very quickly, the business opportunity becomes apparent. We don't need to move people from the red to the blue. We just need to get them to try and get them in the middle. And so that's really what we're trying to do. If I talk about single-minded strategy, we want to get more people in the middle. We want them to try Pizza Hut. Because we know, and we've done research to say that when people do blind tests of different pizzas, Pizza Hut wins in terms of taste. It wins in terms of quality. But not enough people have tried us in the UK. And so when I talk about clarity, single-minded job is to get more people to try us. Yeah? If you're going to go and poke the bear, which is what we were trying to do, we're going to go get more people from the blue side and get them into the middle, it's important to understand who your competitor is and what they're doing. And so we spent some time doing that. And Domino's, as I moved here from Canada, they had gotten a new tagline, which was the official food of everything. Now, you think about that, that's a great leadership mindset. It's the official food of everything. For them to grow in the UK, they need to associate themselves with more occasions. But I talked about that creative idea, so I'm going to link it back to that. As they were trying to establish their supremacy in the market, they were also making themselves look a little bit boring. If you think about the official food of everything, they talked about giving the ovens a night off. They talked about people's 23rd wedding anniversaries. So we tapped on this a little bit, which was they were being very functional, we said, how do we tap into this and make ourselves make them look like the boring choice, make Pizza Hut look like the exciting choice? And so that's really what we did. While our competitor was playing in the functional space, we said as Pizza Hut, we're going to get more emotional. And so all of this links back to clarity of mission. I haven't talked about data and money yet and all of that. We just started with what's our strategy? How do you define clarity of mission? And this was our journey of defining our clarity. Obviously, each one of you will have a different journey, but I'd urge you to spend that time understanding what is it that you're trying to do before you start throwing money at it, before you start throwing rules and media and all those different lovely types of things with it. This was our journey. Now that we had done that, we wanted a creative platform. We wanted a creative idea that would make us the market leader in this market. A creative idea that would talk about all the work that the teams were doing back at our office, whether we talked about Pizza Hut wanted to be the easiest, fastest, and tastiest brand. We were doing all this work, but we didn't have a channel of telling people this work that we were doing. So we just developed a creative platform. I'm going to walk you through some of our creative journey and then show you how we laddered media and all the different media roles and the digital rules to it. So here's the first piece of work that we created. I talked to you about clarity of mission. We wanted to be market leader. We want to be dominant. And so this was our first piece of work that we created. It is a long-form piece of work, and then I'll show you how we adapted this to the digital space. It's a digital-only strategy. This work did not go on TV. We are a fully digital brand. 80% of what we sell is online. And so that's kind of how we buy media as well. But we didn't start with what money we had or what rules we had. We started with what's our mission, and what's our creative idea. So take a look at the work we created.
Hello, Internet. At Pizza Hut, we get asked, do you deliver? Yeah, we deliver. Restaurant quality pizza, piping hot to your home. Now, we're not ones to knock the competition, but guess whose pizza you said tastes best? According to this independent taste test, ours. But we don't need to tell you that because you just told us that. Thank you, Great Britain. At Pizza Hut, we go big on thank yous, which is why we have a reward scheme. Some places don't. But with us, you can earn delicious free pizza by eating delicious pizza. Now, I don't know what heaven's like, but I bet it's a lot like that. No. Our generosity doesn't end there, because unlike the other guys, we also do this. Our 5-pound favorites. All these favorites for just 5 pounds. Do you solemnly swear to deliver piping hot pizzas in 30 minutes? And if you're just 10 minutes late, to give people 10 pounds off their next order? We do, Your Honor. It's called our speed guarantee.
Undo the other lot do that?
No, they don't. So, Internet, in answer to the question, do we deliver? You could say that. Restaurant quality pizzas delivered. Amazing deals and rewards delivered. Speed guarantee delivered. Cheesy bites delivered. Smiles on faces delivered. Yep, we're Pizza Hut delivered. Now that's delivering.
So that's the creative work that we did. And then now that we had a creative idea, we then started with the rules, right? How do you make this work for 6 seconds? How do you make this work at Instagram? How do you make it work in YouTube? But we started with the clarity of mission. And then we created and adapted this work. And by the way, long form is here to live. So YouTube and Facebook and all our work optimized. A lot of people said, you're creating a 90-second ad, who's going to watch? The truth is, if you create good content, people are going to come. I think we had 13 million views for this work, and 35% of it was organic. We didn't even pay money for people to buy it, so it was content that people wanted to watch on their own, and I'll show you some results. So this is how we then started adding the rules of the digital space of different, make it work for vertical, make it work for square, make it work in the sound off environment. All of that came later. First came the creative idea, and it drove results. So obviously, we're here to sell pizza, we're here to drive profitability for our business. We saw 35% organic views for this work, which was fabulous because it was a pretty long ad. We thought people would get bored in the first 20 and not keep watching. 35% people watched the whole thing. We've beat almost all the benchmarks on engagement, ad recall, click-through rates. So I'm a big believer of create good work, the rest will follow. And obviously we saw sales results as well, and I'll show you some sales results later. These were some of the comments we had on YouTube. Some of the consumers said, I don't believe I'm actually taking the time to go find where to put comments in YouTube to give you comments because your work is so good. And I hadn't seen this type of feedback before. All the creative work I've done in the past, and I've done stuff for 17 years, it was pretty cool. And one of the other things was that people in the UK are tired of the soft sell. For a long time, I've created ads with happy mom and dad and happy 2 kids, and everybody's eating pizza and everybody's happy. And that work is kind of become old, and consumers are ready for that little bit of a velvet glove in terms of how you communicate. So that's what we did. We're taking a little bit of a poke at the bear. We're having some fun as we do it, it's driving results for our business. So what next? The next piece, now that we had clarity of mission, now that we've created our work, is continuity and consistency. Stick with the idea. The biggest thing that we attempted to is just getting bored of our work. We get bored of our work much faster than consumers get bored of our work. We see it every day, every hour. We're looking at stuff that we're creating. Consumers don't look at it that frequently, and they don't get bored of our work as often. So my big urge to you would be, once you have an idea that works, stick with it. Don't try to change it every week and every month. So this was work that started in January. We're going to stick with it. This was the strategy I talked to you about. Another big thing that's important for Pizza Hut is value. Being every one of us, when we go to buy a brand, we're looking to get the best price that we can get for our brand. And so value is extremely important. It doesn't matter what that is, right? I'm saying value, but it could be something else. The question is, how do you use this platform to establish that creative message? So the next piece of work, this just went live this Monday, is using the same platform. We found a platform that we like. We found a platform that our consumers like. We used the same guy, the same piece of communication to create a new message. And I'll share that message with you.
At Pizza Hut, we get asked,
Your £5 favourites menu. It's too good to be true, right?
well, Super Lowell's 24/7, it might sound too good to be true, but it is true. We deliver unbelievable value. So unbelievable, I'm wearing these. The Liar Liar Pants on Fire Pants of Truth. Allow me to demonstrate. Professional footballers are underpaid.
Pants of truth.
Pizza Hut's £5 favorites menu offers everyone medium-sized pizza and sides for just £5 each. British weather is always glorious. All these £5 favorites really are just £5 each for everyone. What about busy dads? £5 each. Even sleepy students? £5. Yes, £5 for ambitious execs. Well, let's turn up the heat. The other guys offer the same £5 deal. Oh, wait. No, they don't. I'm sorry to hear that. Pizza Hut's £5 favorites delivered for just £5 each. A deal that sounds too good to be true, but is true. Now that's delivering.
And so we're staying consistent, we're staying constant, we're using this platform, we continue to have fun. So now we started applying rules, right? This was 70-second pieces we've created. Not all of it can live in the digital space. Here are some really quick 6 seconds we created as well.
The weather in Britain is always glorious. You can get all these for just £5 each. Your children are always well behaved. You could feed them for just £5 each.
And here's the ecosystem that our work lives in the digital space. So there's a long-form ad that I talked to you about. We do all the targeting that we heard about all through the day. We know that students, parents, and then everybody else. So we buy these audiences, we optimize our work, we create 6 seconds. We do all the rules, but all the rules and all the things that you're supposed to follow by channel only come later. The creative work comes first, and our creative mission was to, be dominant in the UK, be the leader, have scream from the rooftop about the work we were doing, and that's the journey we followed. And the great bit is it's driving results, right? You wouldn't do any of this if you're not trying to drive results. And so we have, for the last 18 months, seen positive growth in our business. Now we call the same store sales growth. What that means is the same store, is it growing versus last year? And for 5 quarters, we've been positive, whereas for a few years before, we had been flat. And now if you think about the goal was to drive dominance, you're only going to be dominant if you're growing and you're selling more pizzas, and we are. So great news. But the story really is, and for a long time, is have a creative idea, make sure you're putting it into your business, and then you're applying all your media and all the other rules that come with it. So learnings, what learnings have we taken away in the last 18 months on the journey we've been on? Stay true to your brand, know who you are, single-mindedly know what problem you're solving. That's probably the most important thing to do. Then the next one, and I've heard many of you talk about it today, the other speakers are on the ground, know what your consumer wants. Ask your consumer, speak with your consumer, stay true to that. Digital assets can be effective as well as creative. That myth that a digital asset has to be a still image and have text going on it isn't true. It can be creative, it can be effective, and both can be done together. And then lastly, and that's something we've done a lot of, is be bold and have loads of fun. And that fun and that boldness you're doing will show in your work as well. So that's all I had. Thank you for listening. I hope I was able to instill a few of our learnings over the last 2 years into you, and you can take some of this back to the work you do for your brands and for your businesses. Thank you very much.
We've got some time for questions. Who has got the box?
Here it comes. Yeah, you don't need this, do you? But you can have it.
How much time and how many iterations did you go through before you finally landed on that creative?
I probably spent about a lot of money getting something wrong before I got it right, and we created a piece of work. We went on air with it, was asked to remove it, go offline in 5 days because it was really bad work. So it took, like I said, we took a few wrong turns. But the reality was, I talked about having the right team. We had to make some changes. If you're thinking, I talked about being a digital brand. We were surrounding ourselves with agencies that didn't know how to think digital, creative agencies. And so we had to make a few changes. We moved to an agency that thinks creative, a digital-first agency. We went with a media agency that only specialized in digital media. And so I know you talked about the creative idea. So we took a few wrong turns. I think it was a year of making mistakes. And again, going back to what's that business problem you were solving for, we were not clear at the start what we were trying to do, and we created some pretty bad work. I mean, I would love to show that. I'm probably too embarrassed to show it to you. It had puppets in them, and blue, and if you heard about the rainbow, we tried to use rainbow, and it was really wrong. And again, back to that strategy, clarity. We didn't have clarity when we started. So yes, it took us a year, or at least since I've been on the brand and I've been in the country, it took us 1 year and lots of money and mistakes till we found this direction that we're feeling very good about.
So a lot of the companies that I talk to don't have a year to get it wrong. Any suggestions on how we can shortcut to kind of those good creatives?
I'm happy to take that learnings back. Honestly, I've shared with you our journey. I mean, obviously in the digital space, you can create, the reality is though that creative, I was under the assumption that creative in the digital space is cheaper. Reality is you probably spend the same as you would in building creative as you would for TV. So I don't necessarily have any learnings. I'm happy to take them back if somebody has a way of going faster. Creative, whether it's for digital or for TV, doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you need that brilliant creative idea that's going to break through, and that's just hard work. There's no shortcuts to it. I haven't found one, but if anybody has one, I'm happy to learn as well.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. I don't need that. I've got my own mic, so I'm good to go. As you say, you've got a year to get this right, and the creative...
I didn't have a year. It took a year.
It took a year.
People would have liked me to go faster, but I wasn't going to make more mistakes.
It took a year, and you got the creative right, but the idea was planted. What process do you go through to make you think that's the right idea? Do you do any consumer testing of the idea first? Because obviously, with you guys, it's big budgets, and if it goes wrong spectacularly. So is it just leap of faith, or?
In relative terms, we have bigger budgets, but in terms of the competitors, we probably have 1/4 the budget they have. The way I judge a creative idea really is how it makes you feel. Because you can test it all you want, but does it give you goosebumps the first time you watch it? Does it do something for you when you're watching that concept? If it doesn't, it's probably mediocre, and don't settle for mediocre. So I often get the feedback that I'm really blunt from my agencies, that I don't sugarcoat it, but I don't see the reason why, because it's costing money. I may as well just tell you now I hate it, than tell you, it's okay, I think you could do this to it. Either it's working or it's not. And now people have come to realize that that blunt feedback just means we're saving more money. And I kind of urge other people to, do you feel something in your gut when you see a concept? At the end of the day, you're a consumer. You could be a marketeer, but you are a consumer. When you listen to a concept, is it doing something for you? Is it moving you? Is it, even if you hate it, that's an emotion, and that's fine. But you need to feel something, and if it's not doing anything for you, it's a mediocre idea, say no right now and keep moving. That's probably the fastest way to get there. A lot of people just feel the need to be nice. But at the end of it, it's a business, and you're not holding people's emotion. I mean, you need to be good to people, and don't get me wrong, I am wonderful to people. But the reality is, it's a business, and you need to move faster. And so just give the feedback you want faster and move forward.
And that makes sense. And one final question from me is, what longevity do you hope to get out of that campaign? So it will just go until you start seeing engagement drop, or do you say, we need to make this run for the next 12 months?
Well, it's already been 12 months. I would love to see it for a couple of years. I mean, think about Dollar Shave Club. Somebody talked about that, and some of the work that this has been inspired by is the type of work the Dollar Shave Club would do, and they were with their campaign for 10 years. So I am in no rush to exit. In fact, there are global markets around the world looking at this work that's been done in the UK, saying, oh, how can we make this global, make it a global platform? So I'm in no rush. If consumers start getting bored, then that's time to move. Obviously, results are what we drive. If you start seeing results softening, there are many factors behind, that cause results to soften, but you'll see the signs. So we're going to stick with it as long as we can.
Perfect. Any other questions?
Global brand, you've obviously taken a very UK message in this. Did you think about extending, as you developed and invested so much in this, the campaign idea outside the UK? And I think of that because as we travel around the world, we see Pizza Hut in so many markets, and social obviously travels as a global idea. Did you feel restricted ultimately with what you had?
Did I feel restricted by?
By the campaign because it's so UK-centric.
So the reality is that the Pizza Hut, while it's a global brand, it's more similar than it's dissimilar, and there are many markets that experience the same challenges. I mean, I wouldn't start with the work, but I'd start with what business problem is our market trying to solve for, right? And if they are trying to solve for us, the work was created for the UK because that's the business problem the UK is experiencing. Now, there are several markets, and I talked about we're market leaders in many markets, but we're not market leaders in many markets. And if we are not, this work, which has a very challenger, tongue-in-cheek mindset to it, you'd use this work. Now, if you're a leader in the market, this work won't work. Yeah. Yeah? If you're a market leader, this is not the tone you want to have. You'll have a completely different tone, probably the tone Domino's has in this market, which is the official food of everything. And they're right in what they do. It's just what's right for your market. Now, can this work be adapted for different countries? Of course it can. And if you put the right creative minds at it, you can make it happen. I think of the creative idea, having the spokesperson, having a bike, and having this tone. And if you can apply the tone to different business problems, then you have a winning idea that can be global.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. That was a really